Got food on me. When did I do that? Hmm. Can't really see it. All right. Radio. So, welcome back to the stream. All right. So I got a few things to do. I got my Ben debrief stuff that I might as well just start rattling through because it's not all that interesting. But not everybody wants to hear about everything that happened at the bend that I thought was notable. So I've only just finished going through stuff that's been going on at the bend, or that went on at the bend last weekend. I went on the Sunday, had a pretty busy weekend, with plenty going on, and so I wasn't fully versed on who was starting where and stuff like that, and I was just enjoying my time at the bend. I hadn't been there in 3 years, so I wanted to enjoy myself and just have a good time. So that's what I was focused on doing, and so yeah, we're just going to go through everything that happened. So the first thing I wrote down was Garth Tander said that experienced drivers haven't done as much time in race conditions at the bend, and you had a lot of guys who did do some sort of racing. I think it was usually the young guys had done some racing the week before. I think was it Jaden Ojeda or was it Brock Feeney or Ryan Wood? I think Ryan Wood said that he'd done like a GT race the previous weekend or something like that. There were like young guys had done some racing the week before the bend. But the experienced guys like your Mark Winterbottom, Garth Tander, Dale Wood, done pretty much no supercar time at the bend. Apart from maybe like a rookie day or something, but you don't, it depends who gets the invite to go to the rookie day or the evaluation day or whatever it is. So yeah, there wasn't too much interesting before in the build up to practice one. Lowndes went off, which was a bit of a start of not a great weekend for the Triple Eight car. And Lowndes did say it was because they just hadn't been to that track before and they made a few mistakes. They're saying, oh, the car's great, but it's like, the car's great, how come you're not picking up spots? Maybe the drivers aren't any good. So not sure what's going on there. I always write down when I see like a shock absorber change on a car because like I'm sure that all of the teams are doing it or that a lot of the teams are doing it. But it's sort of interesting. You don't really think about that. You go, oh, okay, they're changing the shock absorbers. Will Brown went off, so start to a great weekend for him. Only recovered on the Sunday. There were a couple of recoveries on the Sunday. Like I talked about, the half a kilometer difference between makes, or less than half a kilometer. Which is good. That's what we want to see. Then the reduction in the fuel capacity. I think it said that the minimum 37% of the time for the co-drivers. This is just what I heard them say in the thing, and what I wrote down isn't necessarily accurate. This is just what I've written down. So yeah, minimum I think 37% of the time for the co-drivers. And then we start getting into some interesting stuff. So Mark Scaife said that an oversteery car is required in order to be fast, and we saw that with Thomas Randall. Like that car was really fast. It was a bit loose, but it was fast. Brody Kostecki had a pretty loose car as well. I think Brock Feeney probably had the best car all weekend, or apart from Brody and Todd. But we didn't really get to see that car maximize its performance on the Sunday. So there were 8 sets of tires per car, and you got practice one. We got 5 practice sessions, and a warm up. So tyre saving was pretty important, like who had a set of greens for the shootout and who had the most sets of greens for the race. Like you probably and apparently there wasn't high where it wasn't very high deg, so you probably try and get as much time as possible on one set of tyres or cycle through a few different sets because I think they'd go out on a set of greens to see what their fastest lap was to see if they would actually if they're actually competitive, which is kind of pointless, really. Like, what I do in my F1 Manager game is I just go, we're just going with how the car feels, and then we're going to bolt on a set of greens for qualifying, and then we'll see if if we've got it. And if we got it, we got it. If we don't, we don't. There's no point stressing about it because you just want to worry about setup. But I suppose you don't know if the setup's going to be any good if you haven't run it on a set of greens. If you're just running around on used tyres and pre-marked tyres, there might also be some the teams are allowed. Not really sure on the details there, but yeah, you probably want to know if your setup is any good on a set of greens because you might start the race on a set of greens, or you might be racing on a set of greens at one point and go, oh, our setup is really bad on the set of greens. Like Will Brown didn't know that the car was fast until they bolted on a set of greens and they were fastest in like practice 4 or practice 3 or something. He went, oh, that's good because they thought they were nowhere. Richie Stanaway was talking about correlating data between a December tyre test and practice 1. So obviously the 2025 soft tyre, they did a tyre test at the Bend in December. And so Richie was talking about we're just seeing how things are looking there. I guess they were running. I mean, I don't know. I guess obviously the team would have had some data, and he would have been able to look at that data. And they looked at what they had from practice 1. Scapey said that an AGP style setup is a popular choice. I guess because they talk about it's like a European track, but it's got the undulation. It's like people talk about how every time someone says, "Oh, the bend's boring," I can't tell what part of the track I'm looking at. Like, what do you mean? Like, the back section is the windy bit, and then you got the straights, and like I can tell by looking at it. I think people just whinge for the sake of whinging. They don't really when they say, "Oh, I can't tell what part of the track it is," and they say, "Oh, I need landmarks." Like most tracks have landmarks. Do you have eyes? Yeah. Aaron Cameron said he's trying to keep the setups familiar, and they said they don't have much time to make setup changes in 30 minutes. Brody Kostecki and Will Brown were talking about how I think Brody said he's only had 5 laps, and I thought, well, that's kind of fair. It's fine, but how much of an issue is that really? Because we complain, it's too much practice, and then like maybe instead of having 5 practice sessions, have 1 hour practice session for the main drivers, have another 1 hour practice session for co-drivers, or even just have it open, have it wide open, and then do the warm up in the morning if you need to. I don't know if it's really that important, because they do kind of warm the cars up before while they go like on the formation lap and on the roll around to the grid. So yeah, there's that. Then you got Brody said he forgot his sneakers and got a blister on his foot. Like that's a funny one. I'm like, how do you manage that? But obviously they had a fast race car. Had a pretty difficult weekend, but managed to stick the thing up the front in qualifying and race through to the win. Scapey also said that the AGP setup is really bad in the wet. Well, we didn't get wet race. Weather in Adelaide hasn't been particularly great. It has been like we did have a rainy session. I think it was a practice 1. The end of practice 1, there was a bit of water. I think it's probably when Scapey said that the setup is actually bad in the wet. Aaron Cameron said that he did a rookie day at the Bend as well. So I don't know I don't know if that's him saying that or if Neil Crompton said it. Later on, I'll start writing down who said what because otherwise it's just confusing. Um, and James Courtney said that tyres could be a concern. Well, they were. Um, you could. There were some cases of drivers blowing the rears off. Dale Wood did it. Cam Waters did it. Yeah, it was possible for people to do. But if and Will Brown and Brody Kostecki on the Lucky Dogs podcast did talk about how what did they do? You couldn't do consistent lap times. You could do like a fast one and then you could do a slow one and then you do a slow one. Like you do two fast ones and then the car will be a second or 2 seconds slower the next lap because you've overheated them, and so the next lap would be too slow. So it was interesting hearing about that. That you're better off just doing 52s rather than trying to do a 51. Then we get to practice 2, where Crompo mentions Declan Fraser's injury on his thumb. Bit annoying. And they were saying there's lots of people with recent mileage. So I think Garth Tander said the experienced drivers don't have a lot of mileage, but they said there was a lot of people with recent mileage. Yeah, just the people who'd probably raced in supercars in the last 5 years had done time at the Bend. Obviously, the last time was 2023, and so you got Brody Kostecki swept it. Thomas Randall had history doing well. So that's when you've got those examples of people with lots of recent mileage, or the lots of people with recent mileage. Then on track, we've got a slide for Moffat. Wingcap runs wide. Heimgartner said he's struggling with balance. And Larko says Brody is the best at tyre conservation. And he tries to ask Brody, how come you're the best at tyre conservation? Gee, I must have done like a lot of this today. Because I'm just catching up to my notes that I did today, I'm pretty sure. Was it today or yesterday? Might have been yesterday, I don't know. And then I got confused because I was like, is Lance the co-driver this year? Because he ran in practice 2, which I think might have been an all drivers one. So the first one might have been a primary drivers. Second one was an all drivers. Third one, all drivers. And the fourth one, co-drivers. It's just confusing. As far as I'm concerned, you give them an amount of time and let them work out what they want to do with it. They will make sure that they've got their drivers up to speed. But yeah, I think Lowndes was driving when most of the main drivers, or was it most of the co-drivers? I think most of the co-drivers were doing there, or going around. And then I wrote down also that wildcards and rookies get extra tyres, so that's important. So you see in the practice sessions, Rylan Gray's up the top, and you used to see that quite often in the session. That's because he's a rookie. That's because they're a wildcard. They can do that. And then you would also see who else? I think Aaron Cameron topped one of the sessions because he had that extra set of greens. So they could do that. And they had a chat with Harry Jones. He popped up occasionally and they had opportunities to talk to him. Not too much to say on that one. Lockie Dalton said they were chasing the car a little bit. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about that. He did say more and I didn't write it down. Jared Hughes had a lock up at turn 1. I had a funny moment with him at the signing session. I was standing in front of him while I think he was just signing another poster to make sure that they had enough to go around. And he looked up and he was like, "Whoa," because of how tall I am. He's a funny guy. He's like a Will Brown. I like Jared Hughes. And Aaron Seaton ran on old tyres to get comfy, according to Cameron Crick. And then I thought, is Cameron Crick in the frame at MSR for a full-time ride in 2026? Because you do see like a lot of sponsors on. You saw a lot of sponsors on the SMP round, on the Queensland round, and I think when maybe though there aren't a lot of sponsors on that car that are spending a lot of money. Like maybe they're not rocking up with $1 million or however much money. Probably not $1 million to run a weekend, but like a $300,000 investment from one of those sponsors. Maybe there aren't them, and that's why you got to have lots of little ones and give everyone. So pretty budget racing really there. And that that they have a different sponsor that Aaron Seaton brought. That was interesting because I thought, oh, what happened to what is it, Dolma air conditioning, whatever it is, that was sponsoring him at Queensland and SMP. So not sure what's going on there. Moffat went off again, so they had the car really cranked at the front, the 55, the Randall and Moffat car, and so it kept on get really taily, and he would just fire off. So they're just settling it down. Really, they had a fast car, but they would just needed to settle it down a little bit. And then I had this thought: maybe there's not enough camera angles for the second sector because they would often switch to in-car cameras in the second sector. So I thought, well, what's going on there? Are there not enough cameras? I think maybe they don't have like camera towers or things at that back section because it's usually like drone shots, and there's like doesn't seem to be like dedicated camera spots, but there are in the main straight and in basically sector 1 and 3. That's where they've got dedicated camera spots, but not so much sector 2. It's weird. And I think they've got one. I don't know what the corner is. I think it might be 6. Whatever. I think it might be 6. I'm not really sure about the corners. Because there's 18 corners. So how am I supposed to know? Matt Payne said the Groves are practicing brake changes a lot. They did end up having an issue with one of them, which I think Garth said later. They do it all the time. They practice them all the time. And it's just to make sure that they know what they're doing when they get up to it for Bathurst, when they will be doing brake changes. Because I think they said they did one last year, and then they passed a lot of cars. Not sure if that was Groves. It might have been a different car. But, yeah. Then you got the interesting stuff with the driver weights. So they made I think last year, and there was controversy. Todd Hazelwood and Brody Kostecki won Bathurst because Brody weighs a lot, and Kostecki and Hazelwood weighs quite a bit less. So he was running underweight. But now they've got a 95 kilos inclusion for the driver as part of the 1340 kilogram minimum weight. So there's an allowance that it might be. I mean, you don't want to be overweight, but I think I can't really go into much detail because I don't know enough. But yeah, the weight stuff was interesting. And I think Todd was the obvious one because most drivers are usually quite fit, quite skinny, with obviously a bit of weight because they're going to be losing quite a bit of weight in the 50-degree cars. So yeah. Apparently even like Hyundai XLs get really hot in the cars. So that was interesting to learn about when I went to the Bend on the weekend. And I also think because it's free to go to the South Australian Motor Racing Championships. So there's one in October, and then there's the one at Malala in November. I think there's actually 2. The next one's there was one this weekend, which I didn't know about, so I didn't go. Then there's one in October. Maybe there's 2 in October. And then there's one in November. Maybe there's another one in November. And so the one at Malala in November is a pretty big show because it's just before the Adelaide 500, which I'm probably not going to because, money. Anyway, back to the debrief. Jamie Whincup has a really, really smooth driving style, which Mark Scaife often remarks about. We had a little twitch in Sector 2, and there's lots of corrective driving. That's what I think Scaife was commentating on that. It's not really commentating because they're just sort of watching it and going, oh, this is what's going on, which is not, I mean, I could tell that if I just watched it and the commentator didn't say anything. Um, um, oh, and then they had the driver weigh-ins, and I thought it was really interesting because usually it was whoever drove in that session would come in and weigh in. But Ryan Wood was following Richard Harris and Jaden O'Jaded to the weigh-in, and then they weighed Ryan Wood as well. So it'd be good to know what the thought process was behind that. Like, do they really need to know how much Woody weighs from earlier in that day? Um, yeah, not sure what they were doing, but they were doing something interesting there. Jared Hughes had an interview. He said, yeah, they ran greens at the end. There's a big size difference between Jack LeBrock and Jared Hughes. So Jared Hughes had a big seat insert, and Jack LeBrock saying that Jared should get some KFC and he's happy to pay for it. And they were saying that they'd do a 14-second driver change, which I think Larko and was Larko, Scafey, GT maybe saying, "Oh, that's bullshit. They're not going to actually be able to do a 14-second driver change." Larko said there was an 18-second one, which was for Mostert and Coulthard. But Jared said that he's got a really big seat insert, and the belts are really far. So yeah, bit of he's having to do a bit of compromising to meet with what JLB's doing. Oh, and then they had the what do you call it? The little doco thing with the little feature with Paul Morris talking about Norwell and all the Supercars drivers that have been to Norwell. So Bryce, Brody, Anton, Brock, Golding, and Ryan Wood have all attended Norwell. And Fabian Coulthard actually mentioned during the race that he'd actually done some time at Norwell to sharpen up. Then also in practice too, got a water pump issue on Cam Waters' car, alternator issue on the 38, Brody Kostecki and Todd Hazelwood, steering issue on the number 17, which they changed the rack for. Frosty said that tyre management is important, and that Cam's the main guy. He was like, "Oh yeah, no, back in 2018, Cam was a young guy coming through. Now he's the main guy." And I thought it was interesting that he said he's the main guy, because I think with Thomas Randall, he's in his 4th year, right? Should you be expecting him to be closer? Like, I guess, like in 2019, you probably said that Chaz Mostert was the main guy and Cam Waters was the young guy coming up. And then in 2020, Cam's the main guy. But that was sort of just like in the pecking order, like everybody else was coming in. Cam was basically 2nd or 3rd in the pecking order. And then he inherited top position. So I get to practice 3. And Scapey had talked to Moffat, and Moff said that they've made changes to correct the oversteer. So I think they did want it to be oversteery, but it was probably too oversteery because they just kept spearing off. Like I said, that drivers can pit if the pits are open, because I think that's just a strategy element they didn't want to get rid of for the new safety car procedure stuff. That they still wanted to keep it so you could just, the safety car comes out, you just dive in the pits and get an advantage. That's something they didn't want to get rid of, because like we had in 21 or 22 at Townsville, Cam Waters and I think Cam Waters and someone else dove in the pits when they heard the safety car was coming out, so they went flat out, came around, pitted, and retained their positions. And everyone else had to pit immediately because the safety car had come out there, so they'd got away with it. That was a cool thing that was possible, and I enjoyed seeing that at the time. And so I think Larko agrees, and he wants to see that sort of thing stay. Dale Wood said that he sees a very impressive work ethic in Kai Allen. I think Kai's like another Brock Feeney. I think maybe Rylan Gray is a bit like that as well. Not really sure about Rylan Gray. We'll see. But I think I have heard that he's got a good work ethic as well. He's one of those young guys coming through that's really talented and works hard, and just he's done brilliantly in everything he's in, and so, up he goes. Dale Wood's got an Ice Age helmet this time. He said that his kids, decide what kind of helmet he's gonna have, and he's still I think the main point of changing the helmets every year, what do you have? He has, like, the Dr. Seuss ones. He had, like, a Cat in the Hat one, Toy Story, Ice Age this year. I love that. That's cool. Like, seeing just cool helmet designs. Um, I think Dale Wood gets them done at, Ant-Man Designs, I think they're called. So that stuff's cool. Like, you like seeing cool helmets. It's probably some of the coolest ones you'll see. Um, like in Formula One, the helmets are just not that interesting, and they change them all the time. You just look at them; they're just a mishmash of colors. Dale Wood's got Ice Age on his helmet. Like, how cool is that? So yeah. Scapey said it's good balance on the number 5 card. That's the wild card with Lockie Delton and Rylan Gray. And I think it's a similar thing. Like they've got they had a great car. Like Lowndesy and Bates had a good car, but they weren't able to maximize the results on that car because um, because they're inexperienced drivers. So if you put like Frosty or Cam Waters in that car, the results would have been better. But because they're inexperienced, they got the best that they could get. And, that's fair enough. I think Cam Hill went off in practice 3. Jamie Winkup said he's still a bit rusty and hopefully it improves. It did not. Davey Reynolds' car was being pushed back into the garage and it was having electrical gremlins. Bonnet was up on the 38 DJR car. Steering rack drama. Scafey said it might be a hydraulic issue. And then he said that the tyres are hard to get in the right window, otherwise you fall off the track. It's like really, really delicate spot to have the cars in that position. Like you get them like really gripped up and they'll be really good, and then it'll also be so easy to just slip off the track. So maybe it's just about not working the tyres too hard at the bend. Then Rylan Gray has a slide. Crompo says, "Don't drive angry, Will," because he went and topped practice 3. He got a blend line warning, and he'd also been held up in the pits. People just popping up everywhere in front of him, so he wasn't enjoying that. And then he said, "I don't know why we were fast." Will Brown. Thomas Randall said he didn't want to change too much because otherwise you lose your strengths. A bit similar to what Aaron Cameron said about they didn't want the setup to feel unfamiliar, because they obviously had a good thing going with Aaron Cameron's car. They just went with the wrong strategy of the 4-stop rather than the 3-stop. And yeah, the what do you call it? No, don't know where I'm going with that. And Tom DePasquale said tuning it up better as we go. I had an early green run that helped with their understanding. So, different people doing different things. Sometimes they don't run a set of greens straight away. Maybe it's just better in practice 1 to just bolt on a set of greens and just go bang, see what we can do. Then get some pre-marked tyres and just slap some crappy tyres on to see how that feels. And then bang, you've immediately got an idea of how things are feeling with the car. And then you keep that set of greens so they're like relatively fresh for the end of the session if you want to do a relatively green run. And they call them greens, but it's interesting. Maybe they will just run an actual set of greens, but you've got 8 sets of tires for 8 sessions for the weekend. You don't really want to be mucking around too much with that. Like I said, that Todd Hazelwood maybe didn't notice the crabbing steering, or well, he didn't call it. He called it tracking. I call it crabbing because that's just it makes more sense to me. But he said tracking, like it's just not responding quite the right way. And he said that because Toddy was in a Trans Am, he gets in the car and go, "Oh, how good is this? It's all gripped up." Brody gets in because he's mainly driving a supercar, and he goes, "Well, no, this isn't good. We need to fix this." So then Scafie and Jess were talking about driver feedback. Scafie was talking about driver language and how to interpret it. Um, I don't really have a whole lot to say. Obviously, like different people say different things, and what one person says, like if they say, "Oh, this is crap," or "This is terrible," that maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that it is actually terrible. But you don't know. Different drivers will say different things. Some drivers might complain a lot more, like maybe Ryan Woods might go, "Oh, this is rubbish. This is terrible." Um, or "This is undrivable," but it's not actually undrivable. It's just not great. And yeah, the second session was co-drivers only. I don't know that because I reckon, was that the one that had Lowndesy in it? Oh, I think it was because I've written that in the third session. Anyway, I don't know, confusing. Practice 4 on the Saturday. Matt Nolte and Scapey did the commentary, and people were talking about. I remember reading on Speed Cafe, people were talking about, yeah, how great Matt Nolte was in the commentary. For me, my experience is I really didn't notice him standing out at all. I'm very used to listening to Matt Nolte's voice from seeing plenty of support categories. He just doesn't say anything I don't know because I'm a pretty hardcore Supercars fan, obviously live streaming about it. So anything that Matt Nolte has to say is just not very interesting to me. So like I need insights. So I need Scapey, Crompo, and the pit lane reporters to tell me how things are feeling and what people are doing, because that's more interesting to me. I know the facts about the drivers, like where they were last year, what their achievements are, blah blah blah. That stuff doesn't really interest me that much. And then obviously there was the Wink Up Pie slow zone crash, where we didn't really get like a driver's view of that crash from Wink Up. We've got the in-car camera, but the in-car camera is actually further back. So we could see the signs and we could see Pi up ahead of Wink Up. But I think it was maybe just a bit of like people doing different things sort of thing. So they were firing out of turn out of 3 heading into 4. Or heading out of 3 and going towards the slow zone, or whatever that section was. And because Pi was further up ahead, he fired up. He fired off he accelerated out of 3, and then Wink Up got up to it like 1 or 2 seconds later. And then once Wink Up starts getting up to speed, Pi's hard on the brakes at the line, and then Wink Up's got nowhere to go, and so he tries to get out of the way, but he clips Pi, and he does a lot of damage to the number 1. That's what I saw happen. I don't think Wink Up did anything too wrong, apart from obviously he was trying to simulate a race situation, which is fine, but maybe don't try too hard. I don't know. Chad Nylon said there was no countdown to the slow zone, and so Wink Up was maybe trying to. They were talking about another factor is that people try to make time heading into the slow zone, just like you do heading into the pits. People go really fast heading into the pits. Same thing with the slow zone. Try and make those gains. Suspiciously, no damage on the 88. We didn't have about any damage at all. They just got really lucky on the 88 and really, really unlucky on the number 1. There were a couple of cars that were hard luck stories at Tail and Bend, and that was one of them. Car 38 just had raw speed, but just unreliable. I think that was what was happening with that car. Fabian Coulthard had a slide, and something was installed incorrectly in Reynolds' car, which caused the electrical issues. So yeah, a couple of cars just having some issues. Rylan Gray lost the car at the last corner. Cam McLeod went wide. CL. Oh, Craig Lowndes. Same Bates are struggling on a more difficult track. Obviously, Queensland Raceway versus Tailem Bend. QR is pretty straightforward. A little bit complicated, but pretty straightforward. And Tailem Bend's a much more difficult track. There's a lot more opportunities to screw it up. And a couple of factors they talk about. Tires were difficult. And wind was a big factor. So like, oh, this worked this day. The next day the wind's blowing a different direction. Or maybe during a 3-hour race the wind changes and throws a few people off. Moffat had a moment. So how many times has the 55 gone off? And we're not even up to the race yet, but that car was just wildly unstable in the lead up to the race. Holdsworth reported something loose in the number 20. So he went in. Ojeda went off. James Moffat said that Tommy Randall was open to compromise, while Waters is a hard no to everything. The car was speedy, but a few areas to improve. So that's sort of like the impression that I got from it. It's like, hey, it's a fast car, but you want to try and keep it on the track. That'd be helpful. Then we go up to practice 5. There was a delay for car 19 for practice 5, and that was a starter motor failure. And we got a double stack practice for MSR and Premiere, which is good practice to do. Courtney ran wide. Tires and wind still a factor, so I already mentioned that. BRT were focused on setup, but we'll do rehearsals in the warm-up. That was interesting because you did see quite a few people doing practice. Obviously, I've just mentioned double stack practice for MSR and Premiere. You've got BRT just focused on cars, make sure the cars are fast. Not that helped too much, but Aaron Cameron had a relatively fast car. They just got the strategy wrong because he was pretty competitive against quite a few cars, but just, yeah, bad strategy. Cameron Hill had a pit stop breach in practice 5, so that was a weird one. How do you get a pit stop breach in practice 5? It's weird. Must have been something that affected a different team. I think I might mention it later. The number 1 was back in the garage, so after they've had that crash for the number 1, I think they do mention it later. Something just wasn't put back on properly. Anton has a big off. Kylan runs wide. Job Stewart goes off. And Crompo says that the track exaggerates car setup issues or driver speed difference. So because there's those 18 corners and it's a crazy track, people say it's boring probably because it's so much a complicated track. It's like a difficult track to get right. Some people really enjoy it. Some people hate it. It's like, do you like Queensland Raceway or do you like the Bend? There's the choices. Macca Jones goes off. Steering issues for the number 62, which Nash Morris was driving. They had, I thought it was a dolly angle at the last turn, but it's actually a drone shot. So yeah, they're doing quite a bit with drones this year, and I've been appreciating some of those angles they're getting. I would appreciate more drone shots in that. That back section of Tailem Bend just does not get enough representation in the Supercars broadcasts. And then Triple Eight were draining fuel into the fuel can. And I thought that was interesting because I was wondering, what if you put too much in the car during practice? What happens then? Well, there you go. I think maybe they just burn off whatever's in the car. And I guess there is no requirement to have an empty car. They just have to have a record of this is what we put in, this is what might be left. And and they'll have some sort of it might be interesting knowing what's going on there. Then Ryan Wood ran off, or ran deep. Harry Jones said the Cup car and the Supercar couldn't be more different. So there was a couple of things. First of all, he said that with the Cup car, you're closer to the right hand side, I think, whereas in the Supercar you're more to the left. And then in the Cup car, you left foot brake, whereas in the Supercar you right foot brake. And obviously, in the past, in Supercars, it used to be that left foot braking was actually a useful ability to have. Your Fabian Coulthards, I think Greg Murphy used to do it as well, left foot braking, but they don't do that anymore because it's not needed for some reason. But interesting, you do see foot cam on. I think we saw Lee Holdsworth doing it, David Reynolds doing it in that number 20 Tradie Energy car. They really love foot cam for that car. They just love seeing David Reynolds' feet. I don't know. They've got a fetish. Where were we? Zach Bates has an oversteer spin. That was a pretty big off, that one. And then Andre Heimgartner went off. Then Brody Kostecki had 5 in and out laps, which was like, whoa, what are you going in and out for? Matt Payne had a moment on his flyer, and then I thought, maybe it was Kai Allen. Got a bit confused because I think they were in Payne's car, or they were in Allen's car, and then we saw it got a bit confusing. We see heaps of Grove footage. They seem to always be looking at the in-car of that car. Ryan Wood, so they were out of the window on Friday. It's a very technical track, so a typical track for them. Will Brown said that something needed work in the roll bar system, so lost time for Scott Pye, and that's a bigger concern, is losing the co-driver time. Whereas obviously Will Brown's pretty experienced with that car, so it's just much more to do with getting the co-driver up to speed. Cameron Hill said tricky conditions, weren't completely happy with the car. There was a lost wheel nut for car number 4 was what they got the penalty for. So that was a weird one. Might have been like a financial penalty. Garth Tander said the 19 crew took the electrical parts out, and that's how they identified the starter motor as an issue. My notes got a bit confused earlier because I was like, all right, starter motor failure, no worries. Then it's like, other electrical issues? And now he's clarified, no. We did all this to find out what the issue was. And Martin Short said some very interesting stuff about how the track is. So it's very entry nervous because of the high grip surface. So, yeah. And maybe that's to do with having when you got the car so pointy that the rear is a bit nervous. Maybe that's it. And GT said that there were heaps of tyres for car 19, so they're being very conservative with tyre usage. You don't really need to show anything straight away. You don't want to use up all your tyres, and they don't take them away like they do in Formula One. You just once you've used a green, that's it. You're only allowed a certain number of sets of tyres, similar to Formula One, but not crazy. Then we got qualifying. Zach Bates was not happy with the car. And then you've got Stanaway, Golding, Anthony Pasquale, and David Reynolds. Didn't do first run. They were saving tyres. So basically, Premier and Team 18 didn't go out and do a lap straight away. They waited until halfway through the session. Then Will Davison had a wheel that wasn't on properly. DJR, man. DJR this year. Especially it's fine to have issues in practice, but DJR screwing up with putting a wheel on properly. They did it at Townsville to Will Davis, and he had a bad day. People are already saying that Will Davison's no good. They don't need more excuses like screwing up on. Why is it always on his car too? Doesn't seem to happen too much on Brody's car. You know, if you screw up on Brody's car, people complain about the team, but you screw up on Will Davison's car, they just say, "Oh, it doesn't matter because he's no good," but it's not fair on him. Um, there are 2 cars leaving, their laps to the last minute. I think it was Golding and Stanaway. Um, but Stanaway actually got held up by Mostert, and I'm not sure what happened with Golding. Nothing much. But I think Crompo might have mentioned there was an issue for Golding. I didn't really go back because obviously I was playing catch up today. Only just caught up. Like, I haven't finished my dinner, and that's because I was still paying attention to the broadcast. And some of that's my fault, but some of it's just like, maybe I need to get on top of that, and be more organised. Will Brown was held up by a Grove car being backed out in fast lane. Fullwood might have had an off. There was a blue car that went off. I wasn't sure what it was. It might have been a Snowy Rivers car, like a light blue car. Snowy Rivers or Bryce Fullwood with the Alpha Theta colours. Not really sure. I don't think there's too many other blue cars. I think that's about it. Scapey said Kyle had an issue in the last sector, maybe. Scotty Pye said that Brown had a moment. He might have had a moment at 15-16 and cooked the tyres, and that's why he didn't get a good lap in qualifying. So it's good that they can identify things like that, that just getting the tyres right and not pushing them too hard can really have a massive impact. So maybe try not to warm them up too much, but there's a lot going on. Difficult track to get things right. Then in the shootout, Frosty said that car 6 was struggling under braking. And Garth said the same thing with car 19 with Matt Payne. But Payne was confident that the car was good to move up in the shootout. And so, yeah. Then Cam Hill, before he did his lap, said that they made a small setup change. And then I've got my notes on what happened and what people said about things. So Cooper Murray went a bit wide at turn 9. Exit 17 wasn't great either. Chaz Mostert didn't hit the limiter before turn 3, and I think Ryan Wood do his lap before? No, he didn't. But that's something that Scapey noticed. Then he chirped the brakes at 17. And Tommy Randall had an oversteer moment at 1 and another one at 6, so the car's a bit loosey-goosey. But he still had a really fast lap. Cam Hill had a slide through turn 2, grabbed some dirt, still stuck it on the front row. Some of those cars that were loosey-goosey and still had like little imperfections, still were really fast. Ryan Wood had an off. Brock Feeney sliding the tyres to warm them up. So that was pretty interesting. So you've got overheating the tyres, but then you've also got, you just get them right. Like, you really need to work the tyres to get them into the right temperature. And he did actually, they did dissect it with Larko. So then Brody's lap, he had a little lift of the throttle, corrected the steering a bit, a little bit of like a big correction, and a bit of wheel spin, a slide, and still stuck at like 5th or something. And then here we go, Feeney's dissection. Like I said, that Feeney was the earliest back on the throttle after, I think, turn 1. They went wide. It was a bit wide at some point in sector 2, stuck a wheel in the dirt, and made up a lot of time on Cam Hill, or enough time on Cam Hill in 14, 15, 16 corners. So I don't really remember what, I think it's like the dip bit they come around. That might be those corners. Brody said they had to tune it down for the race. It was wild for the shootout. So they had when they were doing 1 minute 50s, the cars were really loose, but then they needed to do 1 minute 52s and they needed to not destroy the tyres. So you need to wind it down, settle it so it can just keep things consistent. And during the race, Hazelwood pitted on lap 27 or something, so you could do a long stint. And heading into the race, the longest stint that anyone had done was 16 laps, which was Jamie Whincup. So yeah. Then we get up to the Sunday with the warm-up. Brad Jones Racing were roading tyres for Jaime, which I thought was interesting. So obviously he's not happy with greens for some reason. Tony D'Alberto almost nailed Lockie Dalton at 1. That was a bit of a weird one. I can't remember who it was. I think they were talking about it quite a bit. I think it was Scapey who said that Doughton maybe just didn't need to get out of the way. He should have just done what he was doing, and D'Alberto would have just gone straight through the inside. And there was I think there was a lock up for Slade or Fullwood. Oh, maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah. That might have been the blue car. So that was in the warm-up. Car 19 had a front right issue. That was just they were struggling with the brake change. I don't know if they did one in the race, but they had an issue in the warm-up. They left the door open on car number 4, and Garth later said, "Look, you've got to really slam the door. You got to slam it so hard that the door on the other side opens. That's how hard you got to slam the door." Then there was some sort of issue for Erebus. I'm not sure what it was. Will Brown was looking uncomfortable. So this was the eye thing. So he got a bit of some fuel fumes stinging his eyes. And I didn't catch it in the broadcast today, but I remember at the track, Lyco was saying because it's so windy, it was blowing the fumes into the car and into Brownie's eyes. And so that was causing his pain and his suffering. They also had a slow driver change, so that wasn't helpful. Job Stewart and Cooper Murray were done with what they needed to do in the warm-ups. There was 3 minutes left, and they're just like, "Yeah, we're done. We've done everything we need to do. Everything else, it's probably like a Barry Ryan attitude. Like everything else is just the way it happens. Like you're not going to get it perfect. Some things are good to practice. Some things you're just wasting your time." Scapey said 10 drivers have done less than 10 races at the Bend. So quite a few new co-drivers. You got Nash Morris, you got Jared Hughes, you got Job Stewart. What else you got? Lockie Dalton, Rylan Gray. Yeah, quite a few drivers. There was a lockout for Cameron Crick, as you do. Carl Foe was substituting for Sam Scafidi as the number 25 engineer. So that was only for the Sunday. So that was interesting because I was under the impression that Scaff just wasn't there at all, but no, he was there. And then Saturday night he had to go deal with something personal, and so Carl Foe stepped in. So that was interesting. And I guess Carl Foe decided that they needed to do a 4-stop. So they probably didn't help because maybe Scaff would have run a 3-stop. Interesting. And Garth said, yep, he said everything that I've already mentioned. Chaz Mostert was penalised for impeding Stanaway. And no, hang on. I've said starts. No, it's no compulsory pit stops, which is fine. But I also think that they should just have the rules wide open. Just say, yeah, you've got this much time in practice. Do what you want. If you screw it up, that's on you. Not like everybody has to get equal opportunity. You've got equal cars, theoretically. Don't. The rest of the thing's yours. But a bigger thing that I thought was more important was the staggered grid. So I think who was it? They said, was it Ojeda? I think I heard that. They said, Ojeda didn't have a good start. No, he had a fine start. But he was starting this far back from the next car up because they're all staggered. So who was on pole? So I think was it Whincup was on pole, starting on pole, McLeod further back. Maybe it was the other way, whatever it was. So you're not going to get like a great start and then fly down into one. Although I have seen that happen at the Bend. Fabian Coulthard and Cam Waters both did it to McLaughlin in 2020. So, don't know. And then I thought maybe Will Brown's compromising for Scott Pye because Scott Pye is taller than Will Brown. So I thought, oh, maybe Will Brown has a seat insert. So then maybe they're compromising there. I have not seen the latest episode of Apex Hunters because I just didn't want to listen to Scotty Pye whinging, and I need to be in the right headspace. I know I'm a wuss for that, but I need to be in the right headspace to listen to someone talk shit about supercars. So that's me. I've already listened to the Lucky Dogs podcast with Brody Kostecki and Will Brown because I like listening to what they have to say. And they didn't necessarily complain, but they didn't necessarily say this is great, which is fine. I'm happy with middle ground. Then we get up to the race. So Ojeda just put the car in the wrong spot and ran wide. Jared Hughes went off the last turn. Jordan Boys ran wide. Cooper Murray was tagged by Tander, and that was sort of where he sort of screwed up and and dropped a few positions, and that's what prompted him to say, "I need to be more aggressive." So don't be tentative, get the move done, get past him. And I think they said something about Ojeda might have overheated the clutch. So I thought maybe he didn't have a good start. Don't know. Not completely sure if he had a bad start at all. Then Nash Morris pits, and this was like lap 2. All of this has happened before the second or third lap. Nash Morris pits. He's got a flat tire, and this started just a bunch of events for that car. That car was down the back, but they were actually pretty decent for lap speed. I was watching it going, that car looks kind of slow. And then other drivers started pitting and went, oh no, they're not that slow. They've just had an issue. So, and yeah, it was just the tyres. Like you've got, all right, this one's flat. And then the other, because they've got, oh, this one's better now, but this one's getting worse. So it's just screwing them up. Jack Perkins dropped a couple of spots. Not sure what happened there. Dave Russell got 5 seconds for some sort of driving infringement. Not sure what happened there. And Nash Morris, the commentators were saying, oh, maybe Nash Morris got bumped from Jack Smith, and that's what caused his delaminated tyre. We don't really know. Cameron Crick ran wide, letting D'Alberto through. Yeah, it was a weird one. I'm not sure what happened there, but D'Alberto went down the inside at turn 1, and Cameron Crick just sort of did something weird. Yeah, not sure what happened. Garth bumped into Harry's rear, Harry Jones. Pretty much in my notes, because there's 2 Joneses. I mean, obviously, I usually call Macca Jones Macca. I guess I just call Harry Jones Harry. Works for me. Declan Fraser was complaining about steering damage, and we did actually see what happened later on, where I think what happened. Hang on, I've got it here. So Crick went off. We saw that Lowndes just speared into him and knocked him off. Then I noticed, I was like, is the 55 slow or something? Because they just started dropping back. Like, the car was fast, but then maybe they just didn't detune it enough, like Kostecki was saying to do. So Declan Fraser went in, had to fix the steering. Cam McLeod went off, dropped 13th, and picked up a couple of spots to finish the race. Lowndes hit Crick, but then Crick's bombed Fraser, and then Fraser turned into him. So the steward said no further investigation necessary. So yeah, it's just a racing incident. Scott Pye went off. He was run off by Tander, and then I think they said that Tander lost some spots redressing Murray. Not sure when this might have happened. When I wrote that. It was a slow stop for the number 18, which is Harry Jones and Anton. and they dropped a bunch of spots to Garth Tander in the number 19, so they had a pretty damn slow stop. So yeah, it's a case of what if, like, some of these entries, you go, hang on, these guys were up here, what happened? So yeah, something like that. Cam McLeod tagged Jared Hughes on the pit entry. It was a pretty good shove hit on the pit entry. There was a slow fuel rate for Wingcup. We did talk about that last time, so don't really need to elaborate on it. And they also made an adjustment on the car. But yeah, pretty much the day was over from lap 30 onwards, 38 onwards. James Moffat needed more front. It's like, really? You've actually, did they go off at any stage? I don't think so. They didn't, but they wanted more front. So they've taken the front away. Now they want more front. All right. Then Lowndes went off. It was like that. It's just having such a rubbish day. There was like 3 or 4 times that Triple Eight had some sort of screw up. It was a driver related reason, even though they said the car was good. Brad Vaughan had some sort of adjustment, and I think somebody double stacked behind him, which I'm not sure who that was, but yeah, that would have definitely been a factor into someone's race. Then Nash Morris is in for the other front tyre. And Triple Eight made room to bring a car into the garage. So I guess they thought maybe there's an issue with the car for Wingcup. Don't think it would have been for Brown, but yeah, we don't know, I guess. I don't think Brownie actually mentioned it in Lucky Dogs, so don't know. Job Stewart had a big lockup. I knew he had one because they mentioned it in a Speed Cafe article I was reading. And because I think they were talking him up, saying how great he is. And the commentators were like, "Oh, it's Dale Wood, he's locked up." Well, we did see later on, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Job Stewart past Dale Wood, and I thought, how come he passed Dale Wood? He locked up, right? Surely he'd have a flat spot, but no. Dale Wood had actually overcooked his tires, so he was actually going pretty slow. So that's how Job Stewart got past. And they were saying Jamie Whincup wasn't going to make minimum laps on a normal strategy. No, I think it was because they wanted to keep it on the normal strategy. But yeah, not sure what's happening there. But I guess they wanted him to. Maybe they were just saying that he needed to run longer. He needed to do an extra stint, like a triple stint, to make his minimum laps because of the fuel flow problem. So yeah, but just a bad day for the 88. Then D'Alberto and Holdsworth had some sort of incident. Not sure what happened there, but the 17 just had a crap weekend. Cooper Murray said they were going to make an adjustment at the next stop so the car would get better. And had a good day in the 99. Pretty good weekend in the 99, really. Then Moff went off, so he's got more front, now he's off. Great job, Moff. Bloody hell. And D'Alberto got his 5 seconds for bumping Holdsworth, I guess. And yeah, Whincup dropped triple stinted. That's what I was hearing. There's some rear damage on the number 25, which could have been slowing it. And Crompo said maybe it needs a tweak. It did not get a tweak. There was a slow stop for the number 26, Kai Allen and Dale Wood. But I think things were going to go bad for them anyway because they were doing a 4-stop. And I think they said there was only 3 cars that did a 4-stop, but oh my God, excuse me. Quite a few just things going wrong for quite a few cars. Then Boys went off. Then Whincup went off. And then Brody Kostecki got pissed off at Aaron Seaton and ran him off at the last corner. That was great. I love that. It's just like, get out of the way, dummy. Jimmy Golding went off. I remember reacting to that when I was sitting in my chair going, oh my God, please, why? Brock Feeney went off, so things go from bad to worse in the 88. A pit limiter breach for Golding, bad to worse. And Will Brown was struggling with the number one car. He was sitting in fourth struggling, or fifth struggling. Lockie Doughton had a sore back, and he said he went to Brad the physio, who fixed him up perfectly. And that might be Tickford's physio, who also, fun fact, for those who watched the Queensland Raceway round, what's his name? Is it Josh Waters, who races superbikes? He had a bit of a stiff back, whatever's going on. And he went to the Tickford physio and got all fixed up and good as new. Then also, because we're not using the fuel churns in enduros, you've got fuel strategies. So you got people taking a bit less fuel, taking a bit more fuel, and so I think by that stage you've got people taking less in their last stop, which means faster stop, which means potential opportunity to pass people. So that stuff I sort of forgot about. We're so used to the fuel churns at this point in the year, where it's just like, yeah, everybody's just getting the same amount because it's just sprint racing pretty much. Then the number 38, Kostecki and Hazelwood got some more turn. Kai Allen got 5 seconds for banging into Jimmy Golding. And Forward got a flat spot. So some people just working the tyres a bit hard. Anti-roll bar change for Feeney. And then that was the race. Cam Waters said they were lucky not to make mistakes because a lot of people made mistakes. I heard somebody else say, oh, no one's making mistakes. Everyone's doing a great job. But I thought, well, that's not true. I think it might have been Frosty, and then Waters said, no, everyone was making mistakes. Dale Wood said he went too hard too early in his second stint, blew the tyres off. So yeah, not great. Ryan Wood said the cool suit failed on him, and he needs a bigger seat because the one he's got now is giving him sore shoulders. He's getting a bit caught in the seat, so maybe they'll change that for Bathurst. And then Scapey's advice to Whincup is forget about the bend, be eyes forward for Bathurst. And that's my notes for the bend. So yeah, time 1 minute 7 time, 1 hour 7. I mean, great. So I've also got some. I've been working on a year by year breakdown for Shane Gisbergen. It goes from 2007 to halfway through 2020, maybe. So I got some interesting lessons that I've learned about SVG's career. So I probably show that and start rattling it on. Or I've also got the rest of where I was up to for what was it? When I was going through the year by year career stuff. So I could do that, or I could do SVG. I'll do SVG later, I think. So, and then we might watch, might do a little watch along of Baku. I have no idea what time Baku's going to start, but yeah. So where am I? Here we go. What is it called? Is it called just like Supercars Drivers Careers or something like that? What the heck is it called? Yeah, well, this is going to be your time, that's for sure. Where was it? Right, maybe I'll just go to Excel and then grab it. Because it's just going to confuse me. And experienced drivers. Is this it? Yes. All right. Okay. Now, I think I was up to 2010. I was watching it today. So we'll start from 2010. That's where we're up to. So I will get that showing. I do need to put this here so that works brilliantly. So I can see the chat if anyone wants to chat. So here we are in 2010. You got Ingle was the most experienced guy. You got Stephen Richards, Craig Lowndes, Greg Murphy. So quite a few of these drivers are actually just not having the best time. Best one was probably Tander, but even then, Tander was having not a great year because it was HRT. Jason Bargwanna in 2010 was with Brad Jones, I think. No, hang on, he was with Kelly Racing because in 2011 he got the podium with Bridie at Perth. Jason Bright moved to BJR for 2010 and started having a good time again. Stephen Johnson, 2010. Well, obviously, this is the year that James Courtney won the championship. Stephen Johnson, not as great a time, but he was still pretty damn good in his own right. Todd Kelly, his second year with his own team. Same with Rick. Jason Richards, second and unfortunately, well, technically final year with BJR. In 2011, he did the Grand Prix. So I think who was it? I think in 2011. So I think Bargs gave him the car to do that one. I think it was anyway because he had like a BOC car. So maybe it was Bridie gave him that car. I don't know. Got Dumbrell moved to FPR and had his one good year. Apart from maybe 06. 06 was relatively solid. Frosty 2010 was pretty good. Wing Cup 2010 was almost good. Courtney 2010 was his best year ever. There you go. Well, Will Davison in 2010 had a really just unlucky year, I think. I don't think he was particularly bad. Holdsworth 2010 had his best year. Van Gisbergen in 2010, we will get into later, but he sort of started to really shine. He was at 6th in the championship. Almost won Gold Coast. Has had some really good results. Fabian Coulthard moves from one not so good team into another at Walkinshaws, and had his famous rollover at Bathurst. Then you've got Alex Davison down there. His second year at Stone Brothers. 2010 was, I think, the year that he put the car on pole at Darwin, and then the car had an electrical failure. I think the year before in 09, was it 09? Did he come second at Caruso at Darwin? Or was that Lowndes? Well, I mean, it might have been Alex Davison. I think I've only got 1 year of Alex Davison's career that I haven't completely broken down, and that's 2013. He did do other races later, but not so much. And I know that they weren't great opportunities for him. But mainly the Stone Brothers and FPR years where he's in competitive machinery. I think Stone Brothers gave him the best shot. And then after those 3 years, it's like, I'm sorry, we're going to put Lee Holdsworth in the car, who actually did a pretty damn good job because I've been going through Van Gisbergen's time, and Lethal was pretty good in 2012. Tony D'Alberto goes from Rod Nash to his own team in 2010, which his own team seemed to be better than what he was getting in with Rod Nash in the independent race. Was it independent race cars? It might have been independent race cars. Run team with the Bodlow colours. Andrew Thompson has his second year in the category, which is not a good year in the category. And a bit disappointing that he didn't go from... Like, 2011 was his last time that he was really good, and then 12 and 13, he was just a co-driver, and then that was the end of it. I think he got a bit fed up with the category, so he didn't want to do it anymore. Timmy Slade goes from Paul Morris to Stone Brothers and starts demonstrating his ability. Dean Fiore. Now, I've got him as the same colours in 09 and 2010, but because he did do most of 09 as his own team. But at the start of the year, he was actually driving Team Kiwi car. Then you got a bunch of rookies: Jono Webb, Tony Riccardello in the Kelly car, Carl Reimler in the Brytech car, not Brytech, Brad Jones car, Daniel Gaunt in the Lucas Dumbrell car, which is unfortunate. But Lucas Dumbrell was a battler, and you like to appreciate it. So yeah, it's 2010 for you. I don't have a whole lot to say about. I guess the thing that I can think of off the top of my head is Paul Morris had a AAA Technical Alliance, and it was relatively new at this point in time. I think 2008 and 9, Paul Cruikshank was one of the only teams that had the Technical Alliance. And 2010, it was the first year for Triple Eight with Holdens, and so Paul Morris, they ran cars that were Holdens as well, and they just weren't. They felt like they weren't getting the right opportunity or something in 2010, and that they were getting screwed over. And so Russell wasn't particularly happy about it. Murph was just trying to make things happy with the sponsors because they were having a rubbish year in the racing department. And so they just wanted to be like, hey, Castrol, let's do some stuff. Let's give you your money's worth. So, yeah, there was that. But, yeah. 2011, Russell continuing with Paul Morris. Lowndes, we've been through Lowndes' 2011 title challenge. Greg Murphy moves to Kelly Racing, which is a relatively competitive time for him. It's not Kmart Glory Days or even 2005 PWR, or even arguably Tasman years. So yeah, just not a great time for Murph. It's just better. He got pole on the podium in Bathurst, so highlight. Garth Hander, 2011 HRT, first year with Courtney. 2011 was just a start. I want to say the beginning of the end for HRT, but the beginning of the end for HRT was like 2008. So gradual, slow, painful decline for HRT. Jason Barguana goes to Brad Jones for 2011. He just could not keep a seat. For some reason, the Kellys didn't want him in 2011. And I guess because they wanted Murph, there was some sort of a better commercial arrangement with Greg Murphy and Pepsi Max. So they made that happen. And Vargas got the boot and he found himself at BJR because Jason Richards wasn't going to be contesting the season. Variety obviously won those races in 2011, but it was such an inconsistent year for that car and that team. Like, he should have had better results. To come 16th in the championship and win 2 races is just wildly inconsistent. Stephen Johnson did a great job at DJR, but James Moffat was actually very impressive as well at times, but inconsistent as well. Rick Kelly. Oh, tired. Jesus Christ. Rick Kelly won some races in 2011, so that was sort of his probably the last time that he was truly impressive. Paul Dumbrell was just disappointing. Frosty Whincup, obviously Whincup bounced back from 2010 and smashed everyone. Wasn't particularly lucky on occasion, but it was very good. Courtney at HRT. Courtney was just sort of inconsistent, just wildly inconsistent. Just getting in incidents, not impressive in qualifying trim, I think. He didn't really out-qualify Garth Hander, and Garth's one of the GOATs of the sport, so it's hard to say if... I think Courtney was just relatively mid. No, great personality, love the guy, but not the best. Davison. I'd still pick Davison over Courtney, even though Courtney won the championship in 2010. Davison, I feel like, was able to get the job done, but he didn't get the job done in 2012, so I don't know. I have to deep dive, I think. I have to do a deep dive. Holdsworth, his final year at Gary Rogers, and then he does another 11 years in the sport, and not much to write about for the next 11 years. Apart from 2012 at Stone Brothers was actually pretty competitive. I thought he wasn't very competitive, but I guess I just haven't watched much of 2012, so yeah. Van Gisbergen in 2011 was his best year at Stone Brothers, fourth. Lots of podiums. Fabian, his second year at Walkinshaw, was surprisingly consistent and surprisingly competitive. I think he ended up like 11th in the championship or something. He was really good. Maybe not 11th, 12th, I think. Steve Owen makes a comeback with Paul Morris Motorsport and is very impressive in 2011. Steve Owen was one of those guys who you just go, I wonder what it'd been like if he just would have not been booted all the time. Like 2007, he gets booted out for Tony D'Alberto. I guess he just wasn't bringing enough money to the seat. Makes a comeback because he won the Super 2 championship in 2008 and 2010. So he made his comeback with Paul Morris Motorsport, who had some VIP pet foods money on the car. And so Steve Owen did 2011, 2012, and he was quite impressive. And then that was it. Didn't get another opportunity. Paul Morris Motorsport only had the one entry left. I think they might have sold it. And so they had the one entry for 2012, and then Paul Morris decided to lease it to, I think it was Lucas Dunbar Motorsport, which Scott Pye was in that car. And there's a great clip of Paul Morris spitting the chewy at Scott Pye. So yeah, it was interesting. Alex Davis in 2011, impressive at times, just inconsistent, just getting the consistency right. Just not. Some of the drivers are very momentum-driven drivers. Like there were times that Van Gisbergen's qualifying was really bad, and then he'd bounce back and he'd be on top of it, and then he'd be down in the mid pack again. And it's sort of like that for Alex Davis, where it's like, oh, he's good, and oh, he's bad again, he's bad. Now he's good, now he's bad. Michael Caruso was quite impressive, quite competitive, of course. D'Alberto driving now. I think 2010 they were in a Holden. 2011 they switched to Ford. So they ran a Falcon for a couple of years. The D'Alberto family team, and then back to a Commodore for 2013 with Walkinshaw support, and then that was it. Because I guess the D'Albertos had their own Holden dealer, which was so confusing that they were like, oh, we've got our own dealer, and then they switched to Ford. That must have been a confusing time for them or something. Warren Luff makes his comeback in 2011. He had just a couple of years where he's just not driving in not very good machinery. Best machinery was probably 04 at DJR. But obviously it's rookie season, probably made a few mistakes. Maybe worth a deep dive one day. Slady starts to get good in 2011. Shines at Queensland Raceway. I think I saw some sort of stats, maybe via Sleuth or Speed Cafe, whenever it was, but they were like certain drivers who, I think it was the first three podiums who got their first three podiums at Queensland Raceway, and Tim Slade was one of them. I think somebody else. Did somebody do it this year? It wasn't Woody, it wasn't Kai Allen. It wasn't Brownie or Feeney, so yeah, I don't know. Dean Fiore driving his Falcon. I think were they running? I think 2010 was a Falcon. They don't. Yeah, they must have run a Holden in 2009 and then switched to a Falcon in 2010. David Reynolds came back in 2011 and set the world on fire in the Kelly car. He was quite impressive on occasion. John O'Webb running his own team, so struggle street, but at times he was right up there. Or strategized himself into the right position. Carl Ryan, the 2011, who on occasion was quite impressive in the Brad Jones car. I said Brytek before; it was technically Brytek. In terms of the wreck, it was Jason Bright's wreck. And so Ryan actually qualified, was it 7th or something in the first race at Perth, and then the next race he qualified further down the back, and that's when Steve Owen ran in the back of him. I think that was the one, or maybe he started 7th and just stalled it, and then Owen ran in the back of him. I don't think it was. I think he qualified further back for the second race. And yeah, that's 2011 for you. 2012. I'm gonna drink some tea and eat some food actually for a hot second. And if anyone's watching, they can look at my colours or whatever they want to do. I got cauliflower, I got pumpkin, and I got mini roast. In a perfect world, I would have already eaten it. All right. So 2012, year of a bit of change. So Russell Ingall moves to Walkinshaw Racing, replacing Fabian Coulthard, who moved to Brad Jones, replacing Jason Bargwanna, who got given the boot. I did read that Jason Bargwanna actually had money to go racing full-time in Supercars in 2012, but no one wanted to run him. So that was it. I guess maybe there weren't any Falcon teams that wanted him. Yeah, not sure. Maybe he could have gone to DJR, but obviously there were some people like Dean Fiore's going around. They had their own wreck. Paul Morris had his own wreck and also brought sponsorship. James Moffat brought sponsorship as well. So he ran a Norton Toshiba car in 2012, while Dean Fiore ran a Jim Beam car. And this was also technically 4 different teams in the 4-car DJR team. So you got the number 17, which is Dick's wreck. And then we got number 18, which is Charlie's wreck. Then you've got the number 12, which is Triple F Dean Fiore. And then number 49, which was Steve Owen's wreck. Oh, it's Paul Morris's wreck with the VIP Pet Foods car. 2012 was an interesting year in that department. The only thing I remember from it was, I can't remember what track it was. If it was... Oh... It was a street track. I don't think it was Hamilton. I think it might have been Townsville. They had soft tires down the left-hand side or something like that on Steve Owen's car, and Paul Morris said, "The rules say you can do it, so I'm doing it." And the Supercars officials came out and said, "Yeah, we screwed up. We took it out of the rules." And so yes, is legal this time, but when it's not going to be legal next time. So that was funny. Um, 2012, I don't remember as being a very interesting year because a lot of teams just. Oh my god, excuse me. A lot of teams weren't spending money on the cars because they wanted to invest in the next years in the car of the future cars. So the more budgeted teams struggled, and the more money teams where they like, I guess they had like a set budget for the year and it was higher than everyone else's. Um, but yeah, I haven't done a deep dive into 2012 too much. Stone Brothers struggled at times in 2012. I've learned through going through Van Gisbergen's career. Murphy wasn't that bad. We just had a lot of unreliability with the car. So it was actually relatively impressive in the Kelly car at times, but the Kelly car wasn't anything to get excited about that year anyway. And Carl Reiner got the boot too, even though he switched teams for 2012. So I'm not really sure what the sequence of events were if Carl Reiner moved for 2012 or if David Wall rocked up with a bigger bag of cash than Carl Reiner. So yeah, don't know. David Reynolds moved to FPR for 2012, and you've also got Will Davison's title challenge where he got the pole award and won races, and he was quite impressive. He was having a serious crack at it. Whincup won the championship and Bathurst in Kate. That's what he called his car. Jason Bright got beaten by his teammate Fabian Coulthard. That was interesting. Not too much. Ingle went to Walkinshaw, and that was kind of the beginning of the end for him. But he's already up to S in his career. He's a veteran, and he's well into his 40s there as well. Holdsworth moved to Stone Brothers, and he got a podium, but he also qualified. He would out qualify Van Gisbergen and Slade on occasion. But he did have like a big spate of bad luck in the Enduros, I think, and that dropped him down in the championship because he was running 5th at one point. Van Gisbergen was the main guy, but Slade and Holdsworth could be quite impressive. Van Gisbergen, I think, also had some bad luck at some stages, like car unreliability, and sometimes they were qualifying really badly too. Michael Patrese came back in 2012 with Techno. I'm not sure what year it was, but Patrese is also kind of famous for getting in a punch on with his sponsor. That's a true story. I wish I had like clips to show or something because that's funny. Then you got a couple of debutantes, rookies. David Wall, Taz Douglas, and Alex Premer. None of them really debuting for great teams. But Alex Premer probably. Well, I don't know how his year went, but it wasn't great. He was like 27th in the championship, and he made a big improvement for 2013. But unfortunately, his teammate was Scott McLaughlin. And I think Alex also had a bit of bad luck and also some bad performances as well. So that's 2012 for you. Reynolds obviously had some very impressive performances in the FPR car. But, so it might not have been the worst thing for him to do. 2013. 2013, especially with Lowndes, I look at it and I go, oh my god, why do they still have this guy? Because you'd watch every race and be like, oh, Lowndes is qualifying down the back. And they still talk him up like he's this amazing driver, and he's just like really underperforming. HRT. It's interesting watching how the points carried on because there was quite a few drivers at the start of the season who just had like reliability issues or bad race results. And so you'd have like I think Will Davison was leading the championship at one point in the year. Just on consistency, just on finishing races in the top 10. Um, so that was interesting to watch. Um, and obviously Bright and Coulthard were doing a great job for BJR with their just managed to do incredibly well in 2013. And they did sort of repeat it in 2023, but they weren't really able to do it because um, they just didn't have two amazing drivers. Bryce Forward had maybe there was a bit of bad luck, and there was a bit of bad results, bad performances. The main ones where it was just bad luck was the Australian Grand Prix, which I think was that a pit lane speeding penalty or something. So that might have been that might have been his fault. So pretty frustrating for him, and he's probably going to lose his seat at the end of this year, and he might not get another seat because he's not really bringing a lot of money. Middies might not be around in 2026. And I also read that Snow River's Caravans won't be around next year either. So which is a bit interesting because they sponsored, I think, the Tasmania Super Sprint or whatever it's called this year, the Tasmania round. So don't know what's going on there. Obviously Nissans and Mercedes had a terrible time. We got some famous names making their debut. McLaughlin, Mostert, Blanchard, Pye, and Maro Engel all made their debuts in 2013. But also John and first of all, Scott McLaughlin was really impressive from the get-go, immediately qualifying the top 10, racing in the top 10, and had a consistent run of top 10s for a while as well. So he was really impressive. Alex Premo was also quite impressive because I think he outqualified McLaughlin at Pukekohe or in Adelaide or something like that, but he was pretty good straight away as well in 2013. GRM definitely got their Commodore right that year. Then you've got Jono Webb. So I was going to talk about Jono Webb with Van Gisbergen at Techno. Like Jono Webb was pretty good on his day. He would outperform Van Gisbergen as well. I think the worst thing for Webby was he was running his own team. He would have been very good as a professional driver. But I think running your own show in modern supercars is a mistake. You are better off rocking up with a bag of cash to a team and being a professional driver. Because it distracts you. I think it can be a big distraction. And if you can't just focus on demonstrating your talents, you can have a really difficult time of it. So like Webby would be better than Van Gisbergen on his day. But maybe Van Gisbergen hadn't reached his maximum potential at that point either. He was definitely very good, but he was also very inconsistent. And it took until a few years into his Triple Eight time that he actually started becoming the championship winning machine that we know him for. Sometimes you need that proper professional outfit to squeeze that out of you. What else? Not a whole lot. Obviously, Fabian Coulthard became a star in 2013. Not really too much going on. Jason Bright won some races and got some poles. It was quite impressive. But he was being outdone by Fabian. But definitely bought some more time at the team. He outlasted Fabian at the team as well and became, I think, the second longest running BJR driver. Because I think you got Brad Jones, John Bowe, and Jason Bright. those are like your longest running guys. So I think that's it. And Nick Percat. What else? I think that's it for 2013. Not too much to get excited about. 2014. Russell Ingall's last year. So 2013, they were marketing it as his last year in the sport, and he wasn't qualifying or racing very well on occasion. Quite often he was just not having a great time. 2014, he moves to LDM, where they've got a brand new, they've got relatively fresh 888 cars, whereas Ingall was driving around in a Walkinshaw car that they didn't know how to tune. And he's driving for LDM, and I guess the expectations are lower at LDM than they are at Walkinshaw. So 18th in the championship isn't the worst result when it's the best result the team's ever had, whereas coming 15th in the championship in 2013 is disappointing in a Walkinshaw car, or is not very good in a Walkinshaw car. So Russell was actually pretty good in 2014, and then he retired. He actually went, "Yep, that's me done. Off I go." And then he came back as the super substitute in 2015 as well, and then did an enduro campaign in 2016 with Rick Kelly in the Nissan. Lowndesy in 2014, not really sure. 2014, I think, was definitely a qualifying year. Like, if you weren't qualifying well, you were having a rough time. And that's just off of the one race that I've watched at Darwin. I don't know if any other races of 2014 are actually worth watching, apart from obviously Bathurst, which I still haven't watched yet. What else we got? 2014 had Jason Bright's last pole position at Townsville, I think. And Todd Kelly started to improve his results. I think I definitely need to. Some of these things, like just off championship results, doesn't always mean everything. I used to think that championship results meant everything, but it's a general idea of how their season is going, not necessarily an accurate idea. Like if you said, Todd Kelly came 22nd in the championship in 2014, he was no good. But you go, well, actually, he had this one race, he did this incredible performance, so maybe that was something that could happen. He didn't get a podium because his last podium was in 2009, 2010 or something like that. Actually, 2011 Hamilton. I think it was like a Kelly Brothers 1-2 or something crazy. Frosty had a pretty good run in 2014, a bit of a precursor for his championship in 2015, but also a bit of a beginning of the end, because 2014 was his last year that he was actually the best guy at FPR. Whincup smashed everyone in one of his all-time best performances, just on consistency. I do have a PowerPoint presentation on the most consistent Supercars drivers, and what I mean by that is most consecutive top 10s. Jamie Whincup in 2014 had 25 top 10s in a row. That's how you win championships. James Courtney in 2014, then came 6th in the championship, which is just a consistency. Just didn't have an unlucky year. Will Davison went to Erebus for 2014 because he got booted out of FPR because, if you don't want to come second in the team's championship, you can. That's fine. Holdsworth has his final year at Erebus. So in the Erebus documentary, I don't really know why he didn't want to stay, but apparently it's because he heard they were going to go to Volvo, and then later on they were like, "Oh no, we're not going to go to Volvo," and so he went, "Oh, okay, that's not actually what I signed up for," so he left. Will Davison's was actually more interesting because he had like a 4-year deal. And then Barry Ryan was like, "Oh, we don't actually really want you in our plans for 2016," which is really weird because, in retrospect, Will Davison ended up driving a Commodore anyway in 2016. It just wasn't an Erebus Commodore, and he did win Bathurst, so it wasn't all in vain. But you do wonder what the thought process was behind that. Van Gisbergen in 2014 was obviously very impressive. It came second in the championship. Pole at Bathurst, lost Bathurst. And that was it for 2014. I think after that, Roland Dane was like, put him in the car for 2016. Fabian Coulthard leading the charge for Brad Jones Racing. Michael Caruso came 10th in the championship in 2014, and he did it again in 2016. Doing a great job for the Nissan team. And I think he managed to grab a couple podiums too, 2014. Tim Slade moved to Walkinshaw Racing in the Super Jeep car. And now I think 2014 he had the better result in the championship. 2017, hang on, what is it? Because I think of it, Tim Slade's career as like goes up and up and up, and then down, and then up and up and up, and then down. So he went from 22nd in 2013 to 17th in 2014, and then like 13th or 14th. I think it was 13th in 2015. But in 2015, he didn't get as many podiums, but he was inconsistent in 2014. Got podiums, didn't get the consistency to be further up in the championship. Jack Perkins made his return in 2014, driving for Charlie Schwerkolt, which sometimes Charlie would just make weird driver decisions. Made a great one for this year with Anton De Pasquale. And the more I thought about it, the less I was impressed with Mark Winterbottom. So, but Jack Perkins was maybe not one of the best ones. Don't know if I would have kept Alex Davison anyway. But I think maybe there were better options around. Obviously you got Nick Percat and Robert Dahlgren, but Percat was in the wings at Walkinshaw. So, yeah, maybe that's something that could have happened. Percat was actually quite good in 2014. Getting a couple podiums in the Walkinshaw car, getting on the podium at Bathurst as well. Started to demonstrate an ability as one of those guys that could just rock up and stick the car on the podium at Bathurst. But he only did it in inferior machinery. Went to Brad Jones, couldn't do it. Went to MSR, his second year, and possibly his last year, and he doesn't seem like he's going to do it. But he did come 5th at the Bend, so I think it could be possible they could snag a podium, Percat and Slady. So yeah, definitely possible. 2015. Lowndes' last shot at the championship. It was just more on consistency, I think. Now, the most consistent driver in 2015 was a weird one, I think. Who was it? Wasn't Frosty. Don't think it was Wingcup. Who was it? 2015, was it Reynolds? Most consecutive top 10s. Hang on a sec. I'm going to have to check my thing. Where is it? Most. Oh, I really need to. Hang on. Supercars drivers, something. No, that's the chassis one. I need to get my crap together. I've got a mess of PowerPoint presentations. Most consistent drivers. Here we go. My goodness. Who was it in 2015? I want to say Reynolds, I think. Like, I think it's a weird one. It was Reynolds. 17 top 10s in a row. I might have a little divergence, or whatever you want to call it, and switch to that, because I think it'd be a bit fun for a hot second. So we'll do that. So I will now show my most experienced driver. Hang on, where is it? Most consistent drivers. Present. We're just going to stick this over here. All right, we'll go back to the start. That was 2015. So 2003 Marcus Ambrose. 15 top 10s in a row. Jason Bright, 9 top 10s in a row, which tells you more about 04 than, like, that's a competitive year. 9 top 10s in a row is not, isn't great, really. So there was a lot of inconsistency in 04, which is why I think Brighty was leading the championship at one point. I don't think that was a championship contending car, the PWI car. They were just fortunate, I think. Ambrose again in 05, so relatively good. Not the best, obviously, but had a pretty strong run for a while and was leading the championship. I think heading into Bathurst and then lost the lead. Craig Lowndes in 06, most consistent driver, 15 top 10s in a row. Rick Kelly in 2007, 18 top 10s in a row. He just kept on racking up those results. Did a great job. 2008, Jamie Whincup, 27 top 10s in a row. So he truly deserved that championship in 08. 2009, Craig Lowndes, 10 top 10s in a row. So another year where people weren't consistent enough. And the same for 2010, James Courtney, 8 top 10s in a row. That's not impressive, dude. That just means that everybody else was screwing up. So it'd be great to watch 2010, just watching everyone screwing up all the time. 2011, Jamie Whincup, 13 in a row. It's not great. 15 in a row for Craig Lowndes. Well, it's good that he was the best, but 2013, Will Davison, 14 top 10s in a row. Good for Will. And Jamie Whincup, 2014, 25 top 10s in a row. So he's popped up quite a bit. Was that his third time popping up? But also Lowndes has popped up a few times too. One of the most consistent drivers. 06, 09, 2012. Dave Reynolds, 17 in a row, 2015. It's nothing to sneeze about. 12 in a row for Shane Van Gisbergen. It's not super impressive. 10 in a row for McLaughlin and Mostert in 2017. That's not that impressive either, but that was just one of those years, I think. 2018, McLaughlin, 25 top 10s in a row. So like the years that McLaughlin was the best, was winning the championship and was like the best guy in the field. The only year he didn't do that was 2019. I think Gold Coast probably stopped him, and I think the Grand Prix stopped him. Otherwise, he was in it. But Van Gisbergen got that one, 21 top 10s in a row. Quite impressive at that point. Then you got Jamie Whincup and Scott McLaughlin, 11 top 10s in a row in 2020. Obviously 2020 is a bit twisted because they had the tyre situation where some people, where people were forced to run their just didn't have enough sets of tyres to go around, so people had to take a less than stellar result. So 12 in a row for Shane Van Gisbergen in 2021. That's not that impressive. 2022, Cam Waters, 25 top 10s in a row. And then we come up to Triple Eight domination. 15 in a row for Van Gisbergen. It's not that impressive. 13 in a row for Will Brown, 2024. And at the moment, this year, that should probably be 18 top 10s in a row now for Brock Feeney. And Anton De Pasquale could potentially equal it if he scores a top 10 in every race for the rest of the year as the season's over. So at the moment, they are equaling it. So yeah, Anton De Pasquale could be the guy. But, if Brock Feeney has finishes in the top 10 for the rest of the year. Basically, I think it means that if Brock Feeney doesn't finish in the top 10 for the rest of the year, Anton De Pasquale, and if Anton does, then he'll be equal. But Anton needs to pretty much have an incredible end of the year. Brock's already had an incredible year. And you also get to look at the Triple Eight liveries. They've got that like purpley blue, very nice colors. It's a bit of a deeper color in 2021, 2019. You could see the ZB back there in 2018. And then a different color blue in 2016. There's some interesting different blues. It's almost a black in 2014. And then that's the end of the Red Bull era. So yeah, it's my little presentation for most consistent drivers. So yeah, there's that for you. I might eat some more food because I need to eat food because otherwise I might die. I haven't had anyone drop in yet, and I've been recording for almost 2 hours, so you know I need to do that. I might play some solitaire instead of watching the Grand Prix. I don't really care too much about Formula One, but you know, I can enjoy it. I'm happy to miss it though. I don't really care too much. So, this thing again. But quite impressive that Reynolds actually has made the list. Did you go, oh, was Reynolds really that good? I think he is pretty good. Who else was an impressive one? Will Davison actually managed to have one consistent year. James Courtney, we know, only had one, but he probably had more impressive years than 2010 in terms of consistency. I might have those stats somewhere in terms of his most consecutive top 10s. I think the only other one was like 2015 or 20. I think it was 2015, and that's including the interruption where he had his accident and then he came back because it didn't really stop. Then it's just like it had been a long gap in between races, and he came back and he still carried on that success. I have it in my driver stats. I started doing it, including it in my driver stats. So yeah. There's a lot of stuff I have to show. That's why I don't mind having the big break in between races because there's so much to go through. I don't mind having what we've got one more weekend, and then the weekend after that's Bathurst, I think. So yeah. I don't mind that at all. You got what Holdsworth at Charlie Chalkle. We got Van Gisbergen at having his last year at Techno. Fabian won the Adelaide 500 in 2015. Was it? Did he win the Sunday? No, Courtney did. 2015, 2014. I think Coulthard won the first or second race. What else? Not really too impressive. Like Reynolds technically had his best championship finish in 2015, but I don't know if that was his best overall year performance. Because 2018 he was pretty good. 2015 he was also pretty good. I'd say he's probably like the reason he finished third in the championship is because of those consecutive top tens. But he also had quite a few podiums as well. I'm not sure if it was the most of his career, but we'd probably say he's probably not going to get into a top team again at this point. David Wall, another one of those drivers who drove for teams that weren't very good. So him getting his best results wasn't really guaranteed. He was teammates with Scott Pye, and I think Scott Pye was better than David Wall. Driving the Volvo in 2015 wasn't very helpful for him because only one guy was allowed to drive the Volvo successfully, and that was Scott McLaughlin. He did have his moments in 2013 where he qualified quite well. Ash Walsh was impressive on occasion, and so was Andre Heimgartner in his rookie season as well. What else? Whincup had a very strong charge to the end of the year after a pretty crappy start to the year. Winterbottom obviously locked up his championship, but meanwhile he was being dominated by his teammate in qualifying, Chaz Mostert. Rick started racking up some podiums in 2015 in the Nissan, so that was pretty good. David Russell got his first podium as a co-driver, and obviously went on to rack up a couple podiums at Bathurst and got one at Sandown last year with Premier. And Premier are obviously in the process of throwing the babies out with the bathwater. So what else? Jason Bright got his last podium at Sydney Motorsport Park in 2015 for BJR. Garth Tander had a very consistent year. He didn't win any races, but he came third in a lot of races, including at Bathurst. And he finished sixth in the championship. So Courtney sixth in 2014. GT finished sixth in 2015. And Lowndes, I think just on consistency, was in the frame for winning the championship, and just hadn't had as bad a year as Whincup. 2016. Now, because I've been doing Van Gisbergen and looking at his career, I do have the results for Lowndes. So I don't know if I really want to go. I guess I might. I think we'll take another little detour and talk about Lowndes. So drop that and we'll talk about Craig Lowndes. How good was he? Alright, so here we've got SVG. Am I showing that? Yeah. Oh, hang on, I need this here in case somebody drops in and says hi. So 2016. Here's Lowndes here on the right. Here's SVG. SVG wasn't smashing Whincup. Whincup was doing a pretty damn good job. Whincup up, Whincup. SVG, SVG, SVG. Whincup, Whincup. SVG, SVG. Whincup, Whincup. SVG, SVG. Whincup, Whincup. Can't see that, thank you. Whincup, Whincup. SVG, SVG. Whincup. SVG. So this is close. But I think you can see SVG started to really turn it on at the back end of the year. Front row starts for 8 races in a row. Like, I don't know if Whincup did that at all that year, but that was a performance. Definitely really switched it on there. Whereas Lowndes, his qualifying didn't used to be great, but I think it wasn't too bad here in 2017. So like pretty rough here, but he was also putting in some performances, dragging the car into a better result. The podium at Tassie, 11th to 2nd. But yeah, some races where the bad qualifying did not help. What else? Sometimes I just rocked up to a track and he was fast. Like Tassie, he was fast. Queensland, he was fast. I think he just must have had a bad quality at Tassie in that one. Queensland, he was fast, obviously. He got a race win. He was started on the front row and nailed the start and just bolted. That was how he won. I think at Perth, what was it? I think they had a really good strategy, and I think Spevo Max actually did a video about it, so you can watch Spevo Max's video if you want to understand what happened. There's a crummy one at Bathurst. Surely there'd be more to the story there than just moving up 5 spots. Not really great at all. Like when qualifying down the back really did not help him at all. 2017. So SVG started off quite well. He was beating Whincup in qualifying, and then Whincup started beating him and started racking up some results, and had a pretty consistent run for the championship. While Van Gisbergen, not so much. Yeah, it's not a great time there. But Lowndes was putting in some performances. He qualified in the mid-pack and drive up to the top 10. You see here Perth, Winton, Darwin. He's just doing it pretty regularly. He just had some serious race pace that year. And was doing a really good job to be 6th in the championship. Didn't quite have the speed that he had in 2016 to rack up more podiums, because more podiums obviously means better points for the championship. And so things were actually going quite well for him. He had some dud races, obviously. But some solid results at the Enduros, which is very important for points. And then a double DNF, went from 6th to 10th in 2 races. But yeah, Whincup actually, he was doing quite a good job against Van Gisbergen. SVG was pretty inconsistent, whereas Whincup was up there, doing a great job. And it was sort of like a feature for SVG in these early years at Triple Eight. 2018, he just wasn't quite able to nail it consistently. But maybe across the board he was better. Whincup would definitely perform quite well. Like you can see here, he's on the front row in a bunch of races, doing a great job. And like SVG would be up there, but in the other races would just be down. So Whincup doing a great job there. And Lowndes in 2018, it was getting worse. So he's still putting some performances in. Adelaide saving his skin. Getting some top 10s there, and still just like qualifying was getting worse. But not dragging it into the 10, just dragging it up to 13th, 12th. Because his qualifying was down in 20 odd, not in 15, 16, 17, 18. So it's definitely getting worse. And I remember at the time, like around Townsville, they were like, is Lowndes gonna win his 4th championship that's long evaded him? And I was like, Lowndes is not gonna beat Whincup or Van Gisbergen. It's just not gonna happen. Like Lowndes wasn't really beating either of his teammates that regularly at all. He came 2nd to Whincup. He beat Whincup, he beat Whincup that day and beat McLaughlin, I guess. But yeah, his teammates were pretty regularly smashing him. He was rarely the best guy. 2019, SVG was just not getting the results right. it was like, oh, screaming parody, but then you got Wink up there just being consistent and racking up some results. SVG was qualifying not very well. Wink was doing an amazing job, as always. And somehow he ended up second in the championship. I just be like, what? How did he do that? He must have made up some serious ground. It must have been the Enduros. What do you got? Bathurst, Gold Coast, and Sandown. I've included the race for the grid one here because apparently they did get points for it. They didn't in 2018. Not sure why, but yeah, 2019 I think they got points in the race for the grids. But I don't know whether there's like a slight edge for Bathurst. But they must have hauled up a lot of points further up or something. I think I looked at it, it was like 5 DNFs or 5 bad races outside the top 10 versus 3 for Van Gisbergen. Was it 5 for Van Gisbergen? Maybe it was 7 for Wink Up. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 for Wink Up. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5 for Van Gisbergen. That would have been the difference. And then I'm halfway through 2020, so yeah, I'll stop sharing that one. I am getting sort of tired, so I don't know how long I'm going to carry this on for. I do want to eat, so I might, I don't know what I'm going to do, say much more, or I might just call it a stream, and then we'll come back next time, because my usual guy hasn't popped in, so we might call it, and have a nice easy night, and relax. So I think that might be easier for me. I did do my debrief. We looked at some nice presentations, Excel spreadsheets, all the good stuff. So I think we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.